Welcome to Rapid Fire Wednesday, Q&A for corporate immigration professionals. I'm Kimberley Robidoux with WR Migration in their San Diego office, and I'm here with the co-managing partner of the Boston office, Miki Matrician. How are you doing today, Miki?
Hi, Kim. Really liking the crab cakes in Old Bay here.
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's the only place I get crab cakes.
Yep.
Too much breading on the West Coast.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, West Coast. Well, we're here at the Global Workforce Symposium and just learning a lot in some of the panels and just meeting with clients and colleagues and former colleagues and just having a grand old time.
Yeah, totally.
It's been a great week. Good. It's been really helpful. And one of the things that we've been essentially talking about and using on our panels and when we're meeting with people is information that we've learned from our benchmarking, the benchmark surveys that we've been doing since March of this year. And we now have a benchmarking collective of over 200 members, which we share information with those who are in the collective. I love that term, the collective, the benchmark collective. This program is where we gather data through surveys directly from global mobility and immigration professionals. So it's the true data from the people who are in the weeds. They do this day in, day out. It's their area of expertise. So unlike other surveys where it might be a third party or they're just gathering information from people that are not necessarily in the weeds, this has been really, really helpful to get that information both on an industry level and just through, size of companies, et cetera, in order to allow the global mobility and immigration professionals to share ideas and then also learn from these surveys that we're doing so that they can take that information back and relay it to their stakeholders and see how it relates to their program internally. So it's been super helpful, and we're, looking forward to doing many, many more. We have one that's out right now, but we are going to talk today about a benchmarking survey that we recently did. But before we get into that, as part of this benchmarking collective and the surveys that we've been doing, we've also started hosting roundtables. So can you tell us about those roundtables?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of in-person roundtables, one in Boston and another one here at GWS. And then we've had a series of virtual roundtables on various topics. And it's been a really great community building event where global mobility professionals are exchanging information and commiserating about common pain points. And it seems like a really robust conversation where global mobility professionals are walking away with some key insights and maybe sometimes a new way of approaching a problem that they have been handling for a while. So I think it's been a worthwhile endeavor. And it's been an opportunity for us to learn too, because we get to hear about how are different companies and different programs approaching common pain points. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah. And the one that we recently did virtually was on immigration program management. And one of the questions that was tossed out to the group by one of the global mobility professionals who was part of the roundtable was, what do you all do about foreign nationals who ask to work remotely, either on the front end or the back end of vacation because they want to just spend a little more time either in another country or just home, right? They want to spend that time where they're on vacation with their family and friends, but then they also want to stay a little bit longer, but work during that time there. So that was a really good question that was raised, and there was incredible conversation around that. And people walked away with some ideas that was super helpful. And it was helpful for us as well. So can you tell us about some of the concerns? We say, yeah, it'd be great to work remotely, extend your vacation without having to take extra PTO or time off. But, what are some of the concerns with working remotely in that situation?
Yeah, I think the first question is the work going to be done within the United States or abroad? And if it's obviously within the United States, does the status that the foreign national employee holds, is it location specific? So that's a key thing and a first step to engaging with the immigration provider about the regulatory compliance. And then if it's abroad, I guess the question that I would want to know the answer to first is the foreign national a national or a citizen of that country where they wish to work remotely? If they are, then they would naturally have work authorization in that destination. If they aren't, then it adds a level of complexity that really does require global mobility and HR to step in. I mean, in either scenario, I think various issues arise related to employment laws, tax implications for the company and the individual. So those are things that are outside of immigration that should not be forgotten about. And then if it is outside of the United States, then, global mobility has to determine, is this something that the company is willing to entertain? Are they willing to sponsor? Does it require work authorization application? So if it's short-term engagement, a short-term stay, that might weigh into the decision for global mobility to say yes or no. If it requires additional sponsorship, then there's a whole host of processes and costs and implications that need to be thought about.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the concerns that come up are with tax issues, right? So as you're mentioning, it's multiple concerns. It isn't just immigration or time off, but what about the tax considerations if someone is going to be spending time abroad? Does that trigger something for an employer to now have to pay taxes or payroll taxes, or how does that work out? And, the Supreme Court having years ago said that immigration and tax are two of the most complicated areas of law. Neither one of us really dabble in tax. We leave that to the tax professionals, so we focus on the immigration. So that's definitely for, our clients. We help them work with their tax professionals in that situation. But then we're also looking at, does the company have an entity in that location, or are they going to have to get an employer of record? So those are some factors that, we were talking about during, the roundtable. And I know there's some other ones too that you would want to talk about.
Yeah. I think one of them is, what does the policy say about this, right? Because if the policy doesn't allow for a foreign national to work from abroad at the tail end of their vacation or something like that, then it's about policy implementation. Is it being applied consistently across the foreign national population? Because otherwise, you might be opening the company up to discrimination liability issues, and you certainly don't want to do that. Post-pandemic, we heard a lot about this, right? Because people started to get used to working from abroad, and they're like, oh, who would know if I just worked a little bit from vacation and I'm on the beach, and why not extend a few
Why
days?
not?
I just am thinking about what our managing partner of our global practice, Audrey Lustgarten, says, right? It's really important to know ahead of time, and for maybe the company to vet a few destinations where you may want to decide to permit working from certain destinations, so that you're kind of narrowing the globe to certain destinations where the company will be willing to permit the foreign national. And so maybe that means that you have a menu of options after having vetted various countries. Maybe you distill that down to a list, a menu of options where you will permit foreign nationals to work. And I think that's really important because some companies are really expensive, or it might take a long time to secure that work authorization, right? So those are some considerations. So, I have a client who's foreign national employee, has aging parents, and wanted to travel back home. And they're thinking, well, I'm just going to go back home. I have work authorization there, no problem. But there's other considerations too. There's tax implications that you raised. There's also the issue of what's the company policy on allowing remote work? Are there time zone issues? Is the manager on board? Those are some issues. And then if the employee thinks that they can just bring their laptop, maybe they think, well, I'll just bring my laptop, even though I'm going to just go see my parents for a couple of weeks. I'll just bring my laptop in case I need to log in and do a little work. Well, some employers don't allow, employees to bring their laptops outside of the United States. So that's something else that needs to be considered that might be forgotten.
Yeah, those are really, really good key points and factors to absolutely consider. One of the other reasons that someone might be wanting to spend time abroad, or maybe not necessarily wanting to spend time abroad, is situations where we've both had clients. I know a lot of global mobility and immigration professionals have at some point in their career probably had a situation where an employee was maxing out of their time in their visa category. If they're in H-1B status, then we need to look at, if their H-1B is ending, or are we going to be able to recapture some time? And it goes into this whole strategic analysis of when is the labor cert going to be filed? Is it at least a year before the 6-year maximum period? Well, if not, especially now, given the lengthy times for DOL processing, we're not going to necessarily be able to get an approved I-140 by the time that they max out. So companies have to consider, what is our policy on this? Do we have to send someone abroad in order to, one, we want to keep them as an employee. They're working on a key project. So how many days or weeks or months might they have to be outside of the United States? What country can they go to? As you mentioned, like if they're in their home country, if there's no entity there, how is that going to impact the company with respect to all those business considerations? In that case, should they send the person to another country? Hence, Audrey would come in and do an analysis of where they are and what they can do. And, just thinking through those particular aspects. So those are some other considerations. I think those are all great factors and discussions during the roundtable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a wrap for today. And thanks for a fun Rapid Fire Wednesday. And if you don't already follow WR Immigration on LinkedIn, please do, or follow Miki or me on our personal pages. And then we always distill Rapid Fire Wednesday into a newsletter that you can subscribe to. So until next time, good to see you. Thanks again, Miki.
Thanks, Kim. That was fun.